So, guys, about 15 or 20 years ago, there used to be this old ESPN.com column called, it just broke down all the college football games of the week. And it also broke down the pillow fight of the week. uh, I'm not sure that Baylor Cincinnati is quite on that pillow fight level, but we are talking about two programs that are pretty desperate for a win. The Bearcats have lost four straight since a 2-0 start to the season, including last week 30-10 at home against Iowa State. Meanwhile, Baylor is also 2-4. The Bears had a bye week last week, but the week before that, they laid an egg as well against Texas Tech. So, in y'all's view, you cover these teams. What has led to these kind of sluggish first halves of the season for these two programs? And who gets win number 3 on Saturday? Scott, we'll start with you.
Well, the season started with a lot of optimism, actually, because, the first game's Eastern Kentucky. You expect to win that, but then they come out and score. It was 66 points, and everyone figured to win, but it was kind of a blowout. And then the next game is at Pitt, and they make us writers do these preseason prediction things. So I had Pitt down as a loss because you're going to Pitt. This is kind of a new group of guys, and Pitt's been pretty good in the ACC. Well, they beat Pitt, and actually it was pretty convincing for about 3 quarters until Pitt made it close in the fourth. So then you're 2-0 and you come home and you have a rivalry game. Miami University is up the road about 45, 50 minutes from Cincinnati. Cincinnati beating them 16 straight seasons, but this year they didn't. It was a winnable game. They were settling for a lot of field goals instead of touchdowns. They actually had a chance to kick a game-winning field goal. It's a loss. That kind of raised some eyebrows. So then you're 2-1, and you have Oklahoma come in. The Big 12 show comes in, Urban Meyer and that crew, and Brady Quinn, and nice crowd, beautiful day. You hold Oklahoma to 20 points. Again, can't score, but again, that's one you probably ought to lose. But since then, the games have started to become puzzling, starting with going to BYU after that. And that was one where, again, and Cincinnati has had a lot of games this way where statistically you're beating them in like every category but the final score. And that goes in the BYU game. There was a pick 6 early. There was a dropped punt on the 15, which allowed them another quick score. So 14 points you gave up, beat them in every category, but the Cougars get the win. Last week against Iowa State was the stinker of the year by far, maybe similar to what you guys did with Texas Tech, because it looked like a winnable game. And it was the first game all season that Cincinnati was outrushed and outgained. And the Iowa State defense had a plan, and Cincinnati's offense just really, really struggled throwing the ball. And they run the ball very well, but they've made some bad decisions throwing. And so instead of what realistically you maybe could be 4-2, you're 2-4, and that makes people grumpy, even though you have a new coach and 32 new players, and you're in a much more competitive league than the AAC.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, I mean, I would say Baylor's had a few more of those stinkers. They haven't actually won a lot of those statistical categories and still lost. I mean, they've just been bad.
Right. Well, especially offensively. I think there's we haven't really seen the real Baylor team that we all kind of expected this season. The first game of the season, Blake Shapen gets hurt. He misses 3 games, and then the offensive line is still trying to piece things together. The running game that, Baylor is supposed to be built around is pretty much non-existent, especially against Tech. And, I know Richard Reese was kind of dinged up in the Tech game, but he'll be back full go for Cincinnati. So, I think that this is probably, it might have taken 6 games, but maybe I'm expecting to kind of see Baylor maybe break out a little bit and kind of be the team that kind of we expected them to. Bryson Jackson mentioned it yesterday that, you know, those players that were kind of battling some injuries and were maybe 75% are now up to probably 90%. And I think at this point in the season, that's pretty good. So, you know, I know that, you know, there's not a lot of optimism around Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator, and Dave Aranda, and, you know, just Baylor in general. But like, I think Cincinnati is kind of that perfect moment, that perfect team for the Bears to kind of get back to that upper middle class Big 12 team that I think we all expected them to be.
Yeah, so I would look at this game as kind of what you would call a get-right game for both Baylor and Cincinnati. I'm sure the Bearcats are looking at Baylor going, we can beat those guys, and, you know, vice versa, which is why I think what the line I saw was, is it a point?
2.5 to Cincinnati's a 2.5 point favorite, I believe.
I looked today and it said 3, but I think they give you 3 anymore just for playing at home. So,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, they were about the same against Iowa State, and that went south in a hurry about midway through the second quarter.
Yeah.